Good afternoon. It's nice to finally get a
I
chance to
know.
dive in.
Long time coming. I'm glad we made it happen.
I loved meeting you on Goop.
Thank you.
The show blew me away. The day it came out, I had to take a day or two to prepare, be like, okay, how is this profession and this work in this world that I'm so passionate about going to be represented? And then I took a big breath and I watched and I was blown away. I thought it was really well done.
Believe me, I had the same exact because it was hours and days of filming that I knew was going to get edited into minutes. And I'm like, what is this going to look like? It was very nerve-wracking and I was really pleased and proud.
Yeah, as you should be. It was really beautifully done. And I guess my first question would be just how has the experience of being on the show, affected your practice? I know that I'm a beginner to the work, and I've had people write to me and say, I was on the fence about doing this work until I saw that show. And now me and my partner would like to work with you. So I'm wondering just how it's affected you as a practitioner and as a creative person.
Yeah, I love hearing that. I've heard that from a lot of different practitioners and some of the different modalities that I've trained in. And that's really exciting to me that the wider scope of somatic sex and intimacy coaching and all the ways that that's interpreted is like now gaining new recognition, and people are aware that there are more ways to explore than they might have known. For me personally, the metaphor that I keep using is I feel like I'm flying the plane while learning how to fly the plane. So it's been wild the last few months. My business has exploded. I'm creating new ways to work with people, and it's tender actually, because I've had some clients who've been with me for years, used to ongoing work, and what is clearer for me in my trajectory going forward is that this has always been really mission driven. Like I'm really super clear in what I'm here to serve. And in order to do that, it means my private practice is morphing into something where it's a smaller piece and group programs are a bigger piece, and working with people in more like consolidated immersion style chunks instead of ongoing coaching is the direction that things are moving in. So it's been amazing. It's my brain often is like, I can't make any more decisions. But I went from in the early days and for the first bunch of years, like I was a one-woman show. I was every role in my business. That was me. And now that's not the case anymore. There's a team that is behind Darshana. So blessedly so. I have amazing support, and I look forward to all the ways that it's going to keep evolving and unfolding. And, for me, I speak of my work as erotic wholeness coaching. And when I talk about it being mission driven, it's like, I am here to nurture a culture of erotic wholeness. I'm here to help people liberate the power of Eros in themselves in service to a collective liberation. So yeah, it's time for this to grow. And it is. It has.
Collective liberation. Which is amazing. And I'm so touched to hear that you're getting support across the world, because as it should be. I don't know if you know, but I am a filmmaker, and I've gone through the Somatica practice, the training now 3 times, and I've opened a practice. But really, when I met this work, the work of sex and intimacy coaching, and specifically the Somatica method, it just blew my mind how much everything that was being discussed in this training related to my world, to my relationships outside of my romantic and erotic relationships, to my professional life, to my family life, to all these different things. And so we're making a television show called Here She Comes, which hopefully you've heard about it, which tells the story of 2 experiential sex coaches that lead America into the next sexual revolution, and the army of misogynist loners, religious conservatives, and terrified spouses that try to stop them is the log line.
I love it.
And there's so much in it. I even get tripped up when I think through it, because it's just, it's world upon world. And so one of the things I've really loved is asking people, thought leaders in the sex coaching realm, in envisioning collective liberation, erotic collective liberation on a screen, transported around the world. What would you like to see? What do you imagine in a show that would bring these protagonist sex coaches to the world?
Oh, I love it. I love being invited to imagine, because that for me has been so much a part of what I include a focus on in this work, is inviting people to imagine possibilities for themselves that they haven't previously. And so to do it in this way, it's like, ooh, that's enlivening and juicy and exciting. Oh gosh, how to answer? Well, I mean, really, so wait, okay, I want to like refine the question actually. Are you asking like what I would see the protagonists doing, or the scenarios they encounter? Like there's so many angles to answer this from.
Yeah. And I think starting at the biggest, like a show, even just the words, the next sexual revolution.
Yeah.
We're in a sexual revolution. So
Right.
even that, just like, what do you think are what comes to mind when you think of documenting and dramatizing what we're living through now and what you'd like to see us living through?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That feels more specific. I think so much of it is about shedding the scripts and the stories that tell us we have to perform a part when it comes to sex and intimacy in general, that there's a role we need to play and a way to do it right. And creating space and giving examples and role models and pathways for people to really lean into, with curiosity and vulnerability, their authentic expression. And so what I want to see more of is real sex and real intimacy happening. You know, as a coach and as a public figure, I get people often talk to me a lot about, I mean, it comes up in so many conversations, the porn they like to watch, for instance. And even right there, it's like so many people are unaware that there is really high quality, ethical, inclusive, representative, amazing porn. Like I am obsessed with Erika Lust and everything she puts out there, and X Confessions and Lust Cinema. Like, you know, so in the way that that shows something that, while it has an entertainment value to it, has more authenticity and we can see ourselves. That's what I want, is for more people to see themselves reflected in authentic depictions elsewhere, so that it becomes a way that they can access that same authenticity in themselves. I think fundamentally what so many people want to know is like, am I okay? Am I normal? Is it natural that I'm struggling in this way? Is it okay that I want this thing? Because we don't see ourselves represented. We see this highly sensationalized, highly misogynistic, I mean, all the isms like can show up in not just porn, but even in Hollywood and on TV. And while we are in a moment of cultural evolution where more so than ever, there's a greater awareness and sensitivity being made to representation and accuracy and authenticity, we've got a long way to go. And when it comes to anything related to sex and intimacy, even more so. So that's what I would want. I hope that feels like a good answer.
It's a perfect answer. And I can't believe that this computer found a way to me, even though I've turned off all the things.
It was a good moment for it.
No, it liked your answer so much. It accepted it. That's perfect. And I love that you bring in Erika, because I do find Erika's work is truly groundbreaking in how many different ways she and her team can explore turn on and belonging, erotic belonging. It was absolutely the first erotica and porn that I could find myself in. And when it comes to the TV show and the mission, I think what has been at the heart of it, and there's been so many things in this journey that are meaningful, but probably the most meaningful that is at the foundation of this mission is this idea that what I want, what I need, and what turns me on is going to be unique to every other being in the entire cosmos. And just how really leaning into this idea of uniqueness and belonging within what's real for me. And so that's one of the tenets of Here She Comes, is really wanting to show how unique we truly are. And when I think about embracing that individuality, something comes in around wholeness and integral. And I wonder if you could share a little bit about what it means to be an erotic wholeness coach.
I mean, for me, it's been an iterative journey personally and professionally to coming into this work, by which I mean for instance, Somatica was one of the first trainings I did, and it places a strong emphasis on sex and intimacy. And there are other facets of our humanity that are not necessarily as strongly emphasized, which is not a knock about Somatica. I don't know of anything out there that includes everything. So Somatica, sexological body work, other sexuality focus and like areas of my life were hanging out over here. And then hanging out over here was my spiritual path, and a lot of inquiry and exploration that led me into what we can call like nature-based eco psychology, depth psychology, and looking at from like a very Jungian perspective, or like an internal family systems parts works perspective, like what is it to feel whole within ourselves, which fundamentally a simple way to describe that is we look at all of these parts, very, very much emphasizing and including the parts we don't like, the parts that we are challenged by, that continually show up and wreak havoc on our relationships, the protective strategies, so on and so forth. And we learn how to include those. And that's really what wholeness for me is about, is when we can stand in a place of genuine awareness and acceptance of ourselves as we are. And that does not mean like we have an excuse to just be, am I allowed to curse? Is there any limitation? Okay. Like it doesn't mean you just walk around being a fucking asshole because, oh, my part. What it means is that instead of trying to negate these, act as if they aren't pieces of ourselves, we really do the work of holistic integration, whole body, whole being, whole psyche, whole heart, understanding our traumas, understanding our defense strategies, so on and so forth. And so this intersection of the wholeness work and the somatic sex work is what really has been like my particular path forward, taking a very trauma-informed, attachment theory-informed, and culturally relevant or socially just approach to how we are sexual and sensual, aka erotic beings. And the other way that, or I guess another facet of like why I choose the word erotic wholeness instead of saying, for instance, like sexual wholeness, is that our sex is a very important part of ourselves, but it's not all that our eroticism is. So that too is indicative of a quality of wholeness. It's like instead of sex, which has been so commodified and become so confusing, like you're either a slut or you're a prude, we're shamed, but we're told that we should be sexual. Like there's so much confusion. It's been so manipulated. And so because of that, many of us have lost touch with what it is to be sensual, what it is to be creative, the way that our eroticism expresses itself. You use the word belonging earlier. That's a huge piece of this for me. It's like, we belong to an animate, sensuous world. Fundamentally, that's what we're a part of. And all that we yearn for and all that we long for, and often are enacting in our intimate relationships and in our sex in particular, it's a microcosm of a macrocosm. What we want, I believe, is to feel how we belong to this vibrant earth, and to belong to our bodies and belong to the pulse of Eros in us, right? So talking about erotic wholeness then makes space for our sex to absolutely be there, but instead of it being so emphasized, and to the exclusion of other facets of our being, we're really making space for the whole of it. So that's how I approach this work.
I love that. And I love that in all of your interviews and even the way that you're presenting your work on your website, I really do get that eco depth. Mm-hmm. And I get the social justice orientation. And I get all of that. Feels very solid. I guess I'm curious a little bit about your journey and where you started out from, and sort of how the Somatica training fit in. When did you decide to do it? And how did it shape where you were to where you are now? And maybe just like, where are you hoping to take the work?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I mean, this could be a very long story, and I'll try to make it a short story. I mean, I've been precocious always and very attuned to my sexuality always. So in a certain regard, it's been there my whole life. And I mean that, like even as a young one. In terms of where it really, like where I feel there was a true turning point. I was in my early 30s and I had begun exploring Tantra very newly as kind of like a natural extension of what at that time in my life was my main spiritual focus and practice, which is yoga. And I met a man who was like this kind of the archetypal epitome of like everything I wanted and wasn't fully embodying at that time. Super spiritual, super free in his sexuality, traveled the world, done all the things, like, and I was just like completely enamored. And we had a gorgeous relationship that was like super intense for a finite period of time, lit me up on this path. And I was already leaning into really looking at my life and saying, like, is this all there is? Is this what I want? I had been married and divorced. I had built a successful enough corporate career, but there was no soul for me, in that. And yoga was huge. My spiritual path was huge. And more I was wanting to lean in that direction. And it actually kind of surprised me, though, that when I leapt off the cliff, as it were, and said, I left a 10-year career. I left a home. I left my community. I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. Like it was a big upheaval. I didn't actually know that I was going to end up focusing on sexuality in this work. But what kept happening was, as soon as I moved out to California and started getting introduced to people, everywhere I went, it felt like a door was opening. Oh, you should like this community, this workshop, so on and so forth. And somatica and sexological bodywork were really the two centerpiece trainings that I kept kind of circling around. And I just decided, I came from a more traditional in the way of like college educated corporate career. You get certifications for things, you make yourself credible. Even though I actually was exposed to and very much leaning into the less than credible underground world of sex work. And, like I speak pretty freely about that. Like, it's like, I was doing both at the same time. And somatica really, for me, lit up so much possibility. If I think about, I did that training in 2016, I think, so 6 years ago. So I don't know, doing math. But when I first did the somatica training, I mean, at that time, it was the centerpiece of my practice with clients. It's evolved now to where it's one among many different tools that I use and weave in. And I think some of the biggest things that I continue to take with me from somatica as a practitioner, that I can both be authentic and genuine and also create a space of such broad permission, and to use a word that I certainly heard come out of Celeste's mouth many times, maybe Danielle's too, de-shamify the experience, right? Like, and I do think that that's one of the biggest gifts that I often offer people and that they respond to is like, you would be hard pressed to have me judge something you bring into a session space. And what's funny there is I'm really fucking judgmental, actually. But when it comes to our erotic expression, and when it comes to how we navigate relationships, and when it comes to the ways our protective strategies show up and make us do things that we're less than proud of, like, I really, like, it's such an honor to sit in the seat I do, the way people let me so deeply into their lives in such vulnerable terrain, and to meet them from a place where we get to unwind all the tension of that shame and really create a lived experience where you get to be you get to be sexual the way you want to be sexual, you get to be intimate the way you want to be intimate, and more than want, need, and learning how to distinguish that. That's a huge piece of what I carry forward. I mean, and there's lots of fun practices that, from somatica, like the animal game will never go away, like all sorts of different things that pop up in moments. But really and truly, it's like the quality of just unapologetic permission to be you, and to acknowledge that we all have needs and we all have issues, and like no one's asking for perfection here, and yet we can find perfection as we define it, kind of like what you were talking about before is like uniqueness. I think that we are both incredibly unique and also less unique than we think oftentimes, and there's like a sweet spot of where those two meet that ends up like cracking things open for people. And I love facilitating that and bearing witness to that. It's precious.
I completely agree. I feel like every time I went through the training, there was another layer of the first one was just, I'm not alone. Everybody here is dealing with and feeling similar things to me, and we're all being here and brave together. That was really, really powerful. And then the second time, it was a little bit like, that's true. And I need to completely stop comparing and judging myself, because simultaneously I'm a part of this current of sensuality and sexuality, but I'm uniquely myself in it. And that's what was really powerful. And then the third time it was like, okay, I want to do this professionally, creatively, just spread these tools and this message as wide as possible, because everybody should know about the animal game.
Exactly. And I loved that showed up on Sex, Love, and Goop, not through me, through Amina Peterson brought that, of Atlanta Tantra. And I love it.
That was amazing. I loved seeing how each of the different practitioners was working with an element of what I've been exploring and what I've seen explored in Somatica in their own way. And I think this is why this profession is going to explode, because there's so many different ways to do the work. And by accepting, what I've really found powerful about the Somatica trainings as well is just by accepting, showing up and working exactly where you are.
Yeah.
Which as a creative person has been really powerful, because that's the way we show up to set, we show up to write, we show up to act, show up where you are and breathe. So I kind of love that. And I guess just in conclusion, I'd love to ask you sort of what you're curious about in this year moving forward. What's your inquiry as a coach, as a sexual, erotically whole human being? What are you curious about at the moment?
So many things. I mean, so much as the trajectory of how I'm bringing my work forward, really, there's another element of Somatica that I would say, if I'm being so honest, and why wouldn't I be, I kind of do this with, which is Somatica is a community. Like, there are people like yourself who have, repeated the training. I've done all of the trainings, and like Somatica is a community, and there are people who really deeply love being a part of that community. When I say I've done this, that's not a Somatica thing, that's a Darshana thing. And ways that, like, one of my protective strategies is to like kind of put other myself, or to struggle to lean into groups. I'm an introvert, a very sociable introvert, but an introvert. And so I'm actually really curious about how I get to now nurture a community. And I'm really excited about that. And there's also a lot of curiosity of, given the fact that all this is happening while we're in a global pandemic and life is lived on Zoom for so many people. It's like, how to do this well when I'm attending to people who I'm not always in physical space with, where it's very cross-cultural. I have clients and community members and students in different corners of the globe, never mind different parts of the country, different intersections of identity. So it's a constant curiosity and growth edge of, how do I steward this well, stay in my own growth, because the journey never ends. Like, I do not claim to be like, yes, I have arrived at erotic wholeness and I am done. Like, that's not the place I'm leading from. This is a life's journey. And if I happen to be, a few steps ahead of some people along my path, and I can turn around and reach my hand back and say, hey, come this way, just like mentors and teachers of mine have done for me, then that's a beautiful thing. So I guess more than anything, I'm just curious to see how I will keep evolving and expanding into the stewardship of something that ultimately is a lot bigger than I am. And I'm thrilled and honored that I get to show up for that. It's really a privilege.
It's wonderful. And I completely agree. We need these different manifestations of community and like lotuses around the world to keep the vibration going. And I love the image of you stewarding that energy. Sounds beautiful. And I think it's going to work really well, because your interview, you mentioned the word student, and it was like, you get that hit sometimes. You're like, ooh, I want to know more of what this person is saying. So I'm definitely how can people find out about?
Yeah, well, you're not the only one. There has been a lot of requests for apprenticeships and trainings, and that will be evolving. I don't want to be too too rushed with that. But primarily my website is a great place, my newsletter, and I'm on Instagram. My website is my name, darshanaavila.com. On Instagram, my handle is Erotic Wholeness. And I have a nascent Mighty Networks community that is going to be evolving, and that's going to be the online home, at least for the start of things. And stuff is coming, it's an iterative journey. So things are being created in real time. And it's, like I said, it's truly wild and wonderful and an honor to get to do this, and to be in the company of, I know I've had conversations with a few different people who I know from Somatica and or sexological bodywork, who we did trainings together back in the day. And now it's all like, oh, look at what we're creating. When the show came out, Jaya and I had like a nerding out sexological bodyworker conversation at the premiere part. It's like, we are talking about community. Like there's the wider community of somatic sex coaches, educators, like whatever ways we choose to describe ourselves. Like this community has been small and mighty from a practitioner and teacher standpoint, and continues to grow and evolve. And that's another facet of this. It's like, cool, if erotic wholeness ends up being another element or frame that people want to look at this through, how gorgeous. Like more of this in the world. That's what I feel. So
yes, please. I am on a mission to make it like a household name. So we're gonna get you in on a cameo as soon as we get
awesome. I would love it.
Character, we're gonna do a cameo, and we'll bring in the erotic wholeness.
Love it.
So thank you very, very much.
My pleasure, Jessica. Thank you.